Hello and welcome to the Viking Home Companion with another story from the good old days. Although in this case, the good old days weren't all that old. This actually only took place about 3 years ago, and it was at the Ethelmark War Practice. And Ethelmark's War Practice every year is held at Cooper's Lake, the same location as for Pennsic. And this happened, as I say, about 3 years ago, I guess now. And at the war practice, the Tuchux comprised about 2/3 of the enemy forces fighting against Ethelmark, which is where I currently live. And I currently live in the Shire of Hunter's Home, and the unit that I belong to is known as Border Watch. Now, Border Watch was given the left flank of this particular open field battle. Now, when I fight with the Border Watch, I am thankfully not in charge of anything. It's a kind of a big joke that back in my old home of the Barony of Vinhold, that nobody wanted to be in charge, and we would often fight each other with the loser having to be in command. It's not entirely true. It's just that most of us didn't want to be in charge so that we could focus on playing around and having fun and not being the person that had to run everything. However, there were a number of times that as the champion of Vinhold, I was in command of the unit, which is the position the champion has, and other times that I was also in command of the unit. We traded off to make sure that no one person got stuck with it too often. But here in Border Watch, we have a command structure that I do not have to be part of. And instead, what my position generally focuses on is being the counter-flanker. Now, this is something that I was really good at in my old unit when I wasn't in command, because I was really good at watching for anyone trying to get around our ends to flank the unit, and or being far enough in the back to protect us from that, as well as anyone sneaking up on us. In the West Kingdom, kill from behind is legal. We don't hit each other from behind. You get up behind somebody, you put your weapon across their eye slots or across their shoulder and tell them they're dead. And so we always tried to have at least one person whose job was to make sure no one got around behind us. Now, since they don't allow killing from behind back here, I have a slightly different position. I still work on counterflanking, I just don't have to keep quite as big an eye on people getting around behind us. So, in general, what I do is instead of fighting in the first rank, the main line, I fight in the second rank of our unit on either end. Now, typically, that means that I will be on the right end, right behind Rothbjorn Lothbrok. And he will fight on the right end. Usually, he is kind of a switch hitter in that while he is right-hand dominant, he will often in war fight left-handed and will fight on either end. And so I will typically stand right behind him. And so my job then is, if someone starts to come around us, I will move out to intercept them. Or if for whatever reason we're on the end of the line and our opponent isn't paying attention and doesn't send anybody out, then I will pull out and swing around to flank them. So in this battle, as I say, we were given the position of being the left flank. And we were faced off across from a unit of Tuchux. The Tuchux comprised about 2/3 of the opposing side, and so they held the center and their own right flank opposite our left. Now, on this battlefield, however, we weren't all the way up against the end of the battlefield. The end of the battlefield was about 30-40 feet out from us, so there was a gap between us and the end of the field. And instead of me fighting on the right end of our line, since we were butted up with the center, I fought on the left end, second rank. Now, I told all of the guys around me, because we had a few guys that didn't fight with us regularly and didn't know me all that well, that I told them, I said, look, if I split off from the end, I'm going to warn you that I'm doing it, but do not follow me. Okay? If I'm going out there to prevent us from being flanked, stay in formation, stay in the line, do not break formation. This is my job, this is what I do. So the two sides line up, we get ready to go, they yell lay on, and as we move up, the unit of Tuchuks in front of us starts to move at a slight diagonal towards that big gap in our line. And the unit in front of me was about a dozen guys. And so I tell the guys, all right, I'm splitting off, I'm going to plug the hole, don't follow me. Now, a lot of people don't know that I am good at this counter-flanking thing, where I will not obviously charge into an enemy force of that size. Also, I'm one guy, I am not a knight, I am not a master at arms. But what I'm good at is maneuvering against a group larger than me, making them pay attention to me in some way so that they not only can't ignore me and allow me to get around behind them, it'll slow them down. And that's all I'm really attempting to do at this point, is I want to slow down that Tuchuk unit so they do not roll our flank. Okay? So the Tuchuks move up, I split off, I move out into that gap, stand about in the middle of that gap. So one guy covering an area that's about 30 feet across. Now, unknown to myself, at least at the time, is I did get some backup. Two of our great weapons guys, armed with 9-foot pikes or spears, moved in behind me to back me up. Now, I didn't know that at the time. But I just moved out there and stood right in that gap. And the Tuchuks that were moving up towards me slowed down and stopped. Now, just for a moment. They didn't stop all that long, but they just kind of stopped. And the Tuchuk war leader, who was in charge of the entire opposing force, saw their unit stop. And he lets out this bellow. Run him the F over! And he just books at top speed right through the gap that they now have in their line, because this unit moved at a diagonal away, so there was a gap between their right flank and their center. And he just comes blasting right through that opening at full speed, and I see him coming. I'm fighting with sword and board, I've got my war shield, which is nice and big and heavy, and I see him coming, and what I'm trying to do is, there's no way that I can meet him square. He is at least a full head taller than me, at least a good maybe 70, 80 pounds heavier than me, and there's no way that I'm going to try to just brace and take him on. What I was planning to do was kind of take a sidestep, turn a little bit sideways, and deflect him off my shield. I still expected to get knocked back or knocked over, but I wasn't going to take him head-on square. So I made that kind of step half turn. Well, he took a step half turn too, and slammed right into me full steam. The Tuchux train landed on the track, and I went flying. Right up through the air, probably a good 8 to 10 feet before I hit the ground and rolled over off to the side there. And the Tuchuk unit then continued on with their maneuver. Now, the thing was, though, in the amount of time that it took for them to get moving again as their commander hit me, allowed my unit to make their advance and diagonal charge into the center of the Tuchuk line. Now, at that point, I have no idea what ended up happening. I still, to this day, do not remember who won that particular battle. No, I was not knocked silly, I was not concussed, I was not knocked out. It's simply that it's been 3 years since then, and I wasn't paying a lot of attention to what had happened after I got hit. So the Tuchuk unit basically just marched on over top of me and swung around to try and chase my unit down. and a marshal came over and tapped on my shield with his staff and said, "You're not dead, are you?" And I went, "No, but that's okay, I'm not getting up. I've had quite enough for this battle, thank you very much." So that is my story from the good old days of getting run over by the Tuchux train. Yeah, sure, you betcha.